In 1600, Britain was a small island nation nobody took seriously. Spain controlled the seas. France dominated Europe. Portugal ruled the trade routes to Asia. Britain? Britain was poor, isolated, and desperate.
A century later, Britain had territory on every continent. Ships flying the Union Jack were feared from the Caribbean to India. By 1800, Britain controlled the largest empire the world had ever seen. But here's what they don't teach you. This empire wasn't built on superior strength or civilization. It was built on slavery, deception, and calculated brutality. And the story of how it happened is the story of how the modern world was actually shaped, not by heroes and progress, but by greed, violence, and a system designed to exploit millions. This is the real history of the early British Empire, the one they tried to bury. Let me take you back to 1588. The Spanish Armada was unstoppable, the most powerful navy in the world, and it attacked England. The English had smaller ships, fewer soldiers, and almost no chance of winning. Then a storm hit. The Spanish fleet was scattered, and England survived. That moment, that lucky victory, changed everything. Because for the first time, someone had challenged Spain and lived. And English merchants, watching from the coast, saw an opportunity. If Spain could be beaten, then the world's trade routes were up for grabs. And if England could control those routes, it could become rich, incredibly rich. That realization, that hunger for wealth, became the seed of the British Empire. But it didn't start with conquering continents. It started with a question. How do you make money from places you don't control yet? The answer was the chartered company, a brilliant, brutal innovation. In 1600, the Queen of England granted a charter to a group of merchants, the East India Company. It wasn't the government. It was a private business with military power. It could negotiate with rulers, build forts, keep armies, all in the name of profit. And here's what made it both genius and horrifying. The company took all the financial risk and kept most of the profit. The crown got taxes without paying for conquest. It was privatized imperialism. And here's what made it both genius and horrifying. The company took all the financial risk and kept most of the profit. The crown got taxes without paying for conquest. It was privatized imperialism. They didn't just trade, they stole, they conquered. And when local populations resisted, they eliminated them. In the 1640s, English merchants discovered something. Sugar wasn't just profitable, it was addictive. Europe couldn't get enough of it. But sugar required massive labor. Labor that was expensive, unless you didn't have to pay for it. The British didn't invent it, but they industrialized it. Millions of Africans were transported across the Atlantic. 2 million died before they ever reached land, diseased, starved, crushed together in the dark. And on the plantations, the average life expectancy? 7 years. The system was designed for replacement, not survival. Work them to death, buy more, repeat. And the most disturbing part? It was all legal. Parliament approved it, judges upheld it, clergymen defended it. It was built on a machine engineered to turn human suffering into profit. India in the 1700s was wealthy, sophisticated, and powerful. It produced spices, textiles, and goods Europe desperately wanted. But India charged fair prices, which meant limited profit. The East India Company looked at this and saw a problem. How do you extract more wealth without being asked to leave? You destabilize India by finding rival rulers, funding their conflicts, fighting their wars for them, and then slowly replacing them. By the late 1700s, the company was no longer a trading business.
It was a private empire ruling millions, and no one had voted for it.
The richest region in India flourished for centuries until the company seized control. They raised taxes, extracted grain for export, ignored every warning, and in doing so, triggered one of the deadliest famines in history.
10 million people died, half the region's population, while the company kept exporting grain for profit.
It wasn't a tragic accident. It was policy, deliberately documented, implemented, and defended.
It extracted the wealth, hollowed the region out, transformed one of the world's richest lands into one of the poorest, and sent the profits straight to London.
Some of the wealth from empire came back to Britain, and it was used to build beautiful things, elegant cities, cathedrals, museums, art, universities.
But here's the secret they don't teach. Most of it was stolen from Egypt, India, Africa, Greece, and dozens of other places. When we admire British cultural heritage today, we are often admiring things built on slavery and conquest.
The justification? An ideology called the white man's burden. The belief that Britain had a moral duty to civilize the world, to bring progress, and to bring God.
It was the perfect excuse to enslave, to steal, and to conquer, and still believe they were heroes. The empire told itself a story so convincing most people believed it. Even the conquered sometimes believed it too.
The Industrial Revolution amplified everything in such a way that Britain was mechanized, became wealthy, and became unstoppable. With that wealth came military power, steam-powered ships, machine guns, railroads, telegraphs, technology that gave Britain overwhelming advantage.
By 1800, Britain was the dominant global power. Territory on every continent, the strongest navy in the world, and it used it all to extract maximum wealth.
India, Ireland, Africa, the Caribbean, Canada, Australia, all producing resources and wealth that flowed to Britain. All were ruled under the assumption that Britain had the right to do so, that it was natural, and that it was progress. The impact on the conquered territories was catastrophic. Millions starved, entire civilizations were disrupted, cultures destroyed, and resources stolen. And yet, the official story celebrates British civilization spreading across the globe, the glory of empire, the achievement of worldwide order and trade. The violence, the theft, the slavery? Minimized, erased, forgotten. The early British Empire didn't end with formal colonialism, it evolved. The systems it created continue to operate to this day. The same logic that justified taking India's wealth justifies economic exploitation of developing nations today. The same racial hierarchies that justified slavery echo in modern racism.
The narrative that colonialism was civilizing is now used to justify economic policies that harm billions.
And yet, some things endure from the empire. English is a global language, international trade networks, legal systems, and infrastructure. The racial categories we take for granted were invented to justify slavery and colonization, and their impact persists today. Understanding the early British Empire isn't just about history. It's about seeing why the modern world is structured the way it is, why wealth is concentrated, why resources flow outward, and why certain narratives exist to justify inequality. The early British Empire was one of history's most successful systems. Successful in creating wealth, in projecting power, and in convincing people that brutality was progress.
That success came at an incomprehensible cost. Millions enslaved, millions starved, entire civilizations disrupted, resources stolen, and cultures destroyed.
And all of it justified by a story a narrative of superiority and civilization. A story so convincing, the world believed it.
Understanding this isn't about blaming modern Britain. It's about understanding how the modern world actually works. Recognizing that systems we take for granted were created to serve specific interests.
The empire is gone, but its logic persists. Understanding that logic is the first step toward building something different, something more just, something truly based on equality rather than exploitation.
If this revelation resonates, I want to hear your thoughts. The past isn't what they told you. It's more complicated, more brutal, and more important to understand.